This is Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. Enjoy this compilation where we discuss old technologies.
So I'd love to talk about robots for a while, but Commodore 64, I think, is a little bit more important, at least right now.
So this is an interesting thing that has taken place over about the last, well, for us, the public viewing it, it's only over the last month. However, from what we're led to believe from the videos and the news information that's come out, this has actually been a few months in the making. So Perry Fractic, who is the host of his YouTube channel Retro Recipes, and he's my generation, and he grew up as a kid in England, and remembers his first computers that he ever used, and his dad had computers, and sometimes brought a couple things home and used a variety of different computers from back in the 80s. But his favorite computer at the time was a Commodore 64, and I had a Commodore 64 growing up, and there's a lot of fun things. Commodore 64 was is the #1 selling home computer, at least for the 1980s. I don't know that anything has ever come close to matching its record.
I actually just saw that recently in an unrelated research thing, but yeah, it is right. As a single standalone model, it is the best-selling model ever, sold the most.
So anyhow, as Commodore hit it big with the Commodore 64. They had put out the Commodore PET in the 70s, and that was an all-in-one machine with a fixed monitor, keyboard, and everything. And it sold. There's people that had it. The Apple II came out around that time. And then as we got into the 80s, Commodore had put out the VIC-20, and then came out with the improved version, which is the Commodore 64. And the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 actually are built on some of the same chip architectures. There's the VIC chip, the video chip that went into the original VIC-20, and then they improved that to become the VIC-2, and that was what went into the Commodore 64. An increase in RAM, and some other things. People loved it. It was used as mostly a gaming machine, I think. I mean, from when I see it, I see people use it as a gaming machine, but it could do a lot of computing too. You could sit down and do a word processor on it. You could sit down and I've even used a couple spreadsheet programs on it. It could do a couple different things, and you had the basic programming language right there at your fingertips, like a lot of other 8-bit computers did at the time. As Commodore went on,
in color,
yeah, and in color. And that's the other thing, is that the Commodore 64 was really neat because it had a revolutionary sound chip in it, and it had a revolutionary video chip in it. Nobody else at that time was doing what the Commodore 64 could do with sound and graphics. Now you move on, and we have the Commodore 128, which is basically like taking two Commodore 64s and putting them together into one machine. So you had twice the amount of RAM, an expanded basic command set, and other capabilities that it had. But as Commodore went on, they eventually went out of business in the mid-90s. I think 1994 is the year that they're marked as being kind of out of business. They did acquire Amiga and had pushed out the Amiga platform for a number of years. But
out of business, you mean they're not selling units anymore? They're
not selling units anymore. Yeah.
An office.
The other thing about it is that Commodore set themselves up internationally. So you had Commodore in the United States, you had Commodore in Europe and in England, you had Commodore in Australia, you had Commodore in Japan. And there were slight differences because they had to, like for instance, the Commodore 64, manufacturing that machine for those different markets required a little bit of tweaking, because maybe you want a more European character set. Maybe you need a Japanese character set instead of, just the traditional English Roman alphabet, right? So there's ended up being a whole bunch of different brands for Commodore. And when Commodore went out of business, the branding started to change hands. People would buy the branding and try to do something with it, or even just sit on it and not really do anything with it. And I remember even in the 2000s, seeing that Commodore kind of would revive every once in a while on the internet. And you say, "Oh, Commodore, somebody's doing something with Commodore. What's Commodore doing?" And, "Oh, we're making cell phones." Like, really? That's it? Cell phones? And I'm not talking smartphones. I'm talking, this is back in the day when all we were using were just the flip phones. So little flip phones, smartphones, and it's floated around. The branding has floated around to different organizations at different points in time. And so Perry Fractic, the host of Retro Recipes, decided that something needed to be done. He wanted to figure out a way, can we get ourselves an ability to get some licensing, or can we fix this branding issue? And from what I understand from what he's reporting in his videos, is that there was actually a point that the branding was going to expire, and then it was just going to be a free-for-all. And if the wrong people picked it up, that it was going to be not good for the community. And so he set about initially just to go and secure rights to the branding so that they could protect it for generations to come. As his videos come out, it ends up that he ends up getting into deals to actually purchase the entire company and the rights outright. And it's like, whoa, like that's a big deal, because now his organization that he's set up to take this over now has complete control over it.
But what is his company and what do they do?
So it's going to be Commodore, and he's going to revive the Commodore brand. He bought the company Commodore.
Oh, wow.
And that means it protects all the trademarks, and it gives him the vehicle to be able to do stuff with it, not just to protect retro computing, but to also now innovate and come out with some new ideas as well. Here's the big thing. So that was part one of the video, dealt with that whole backstory and how he got on this journey. And then he did part two of the video, which just came out in this last weekend. And it's a big deal. Like, it was one thing to see that he got Commodore, but the people that he's brought on with him is probably the more impressive aspect. He's got Bill Hurd in his corner. He's got Michael Tomchik in his corner. Bob Yanis and Al Sharpenter, who Bill Hurd is still friends with, are kind of now in his corner. These are all people that used to work at Commodore back in the day.
Oh, wow.
These are Al Sharpenter and Bob Yanis. They're the guys who designed the sound chip and the circuitry that went into the Commodore 64 and all the other Commodore computers. Bill Hurd designed and developed the Commodore 128. To have these people in his corner, like from the old days, the old guard that was at the company, to now be there and to consult with him, that is a huge deal. So it's going to be really
bit of talent.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see what kinds of stuff comes out from this.
Yeah, do you know, are they, like, what exactly is their goal then? Where do they want to take it? Like, do they want to take it to new horizons, or do they want to stay in kind of like their retro niche? Or like, are they trying to innovate and make new?
It's a little bit of both. Primarily, the original mission was to protect the trademark. And the reason why they wanted to protect the trademarks and save it for the retro community is because, so here's the other aspect of the story. Since Commodore's been out of business, there's been lots of people that still enjoy the computer and still develop new things for it. So we have things like IDE hard drive interfaces, Ethernet networking cartridges that you can plug in to do Ethernet networking on your Commodore, Wi-Fi adapters that plug into your Commodore 64 so it can get on the Wi-Fi. New games,
is all of this...
games. But hang on, I'm getting to this.
Okay.
all these people want to be able to market it as a Commodore product, but because the trademarks were in control by somebody else, in order to get trademark licensing it was an astronomical price. It didn't fit their budget because these are little hobbyist guys. They're just doing a handful of devices and selling them on eBay or the internet or Amazon or something to get a couple bucks off of it. So he's securing the trademarks to make that more available to the retro community that continues to develop new things for the old platform. Okay, so what other questions do you have?
Well, so what is the appeal to I mean, why are people putting their Commodore 64s on the Wi-Fi? I mean, is it purely just for that retro, like just the nostalgia and just kind of for fun, or is there like a...
Can I venture a guess, Mike?
Go for it, John.
Jackson, you've used a Raspberry Pi, right?
Yeah.
So why would you use that when you've got a Intel Core or whatever on your desktop? You got a way more powerful computer that can do light years more work than a Raspberry Pi.
Sometimes you don't need it. You need a cheap solution.
Okay, but why would you develop extra little things that make it work that much more like a PC on your cheap solution? Like, you can make a Raspberry Pi into a full desktop. Give it Wi-Fi, give it Ethernet, give it...
Might not enjoy that, but you
Which
could.
people have, actually.
Yep. So it's one of those where you're taking old nostalgic tech and bringing it into today's world and making it exciting again. Mike, did I get it right?
Yeah, that's part of it. That is a good part of it. Putting a Commodore 64 on the internet is because people don't have landline BBS telephone lines anymore. Using a traditional modem actually kind of doesn't work anymore because everything has gone digital. And so, and besides that, we don't want to communicate at 1200 BPS or 2400 BPS. We want to go as fast as we possibly can. So you stick a Wi-Fi adapter onto your Commodore 64. Now, instead of dialing a phone number to get to a bulletin board system, you can type in an IP address and telnet to a BBS system and be able to do it as fast as your telnet application can do it on a Commodore 64. So there's lots of reasons why people are doing this. Why would you want to connect an IDE hard drive to it? Because an IDE hard drive is going to hold many, many megabytes worth of information, whereas your old Commodore 1541 disk drive only holds one disk at a time and has a capacity of 172 kilobytes. So that it's keeping that nostalgia alive by being able to adapt newer hardware and newer technologies into it. And then I can sit down, I can play my old games, and I can do all kinds of other things.
So yeah,
really exciting stuff. Yeah, you're bringing back the past. And yeah, can you run an emulator on your computer? Yeah, I've done it all the time. I've got Commodore 64 emulators that I run, but there's something different about using the actual hardware and seeing that it works and watching it work and it works the way it's supposed to. Because as good as an emulator is, an emulator still has not perfectly emulated all the nuance of the circuitry that's in a Commodore 64 and all the features and everything.
All the bugs.
Now, I'll say something about that. I was actually just having a discussion with some of my like-minded friends that are in electrical and computer engineering, and we got onto this because we were talking about old cars and like we just like the interior of an old car, the radio, the AC, and we were just talking about how unfortunate it is that in newer cars that everything has turned into just a screen. And I hate that person. I hate it. I love my dials. I love being able to twist the volume knob. I like being able to push a button for the AC or whatever. And there's just a certain feel to that I would much prefer rather than have a digital screen that might have more capabilities and more options, but I want my buttons. And the same goes for like you see this in the audio industry. they have those digital displays that have all their audio controls on it, but you just don't see them used.
Right.
People have the huge panels with their dials and
The sliders.
the sliders and the switches,
Yeah.
like that could all be easily turned digital, but sometimes you don't want, and sometimes you don't want digital because you do want an analog signal with audio for various reasons. But sometimes it's even it's doing the digital to analog conversion, even though it is, sliders and dials and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think I understand that, at least, like I get that the retro feel, or just there's something to it, and like what you're saying with an emulator, it's like I can emulate a Game Boy or all these other old things, but there's something about the old arcades that was just so nice. You got to go to one ginormous machine to play one game, and it was so much fun. And it's unfortunate that I feel like those arcades are kind of going away, because that was so much fun to go play the simple, Pac-Man at an arcade on with a joystick and two buttons. That was fun.
Right. Exactly. And it's like,
there was a lot of engineering behind that stuff. Like the user experience to sit down at an upright arcade and the joystick that was there. Those things were designed to be like teenager proof, angry teenager proof.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't get that nowadays.
And I think anything as humans, we have a desire to connect with things that are old and from the past. I mean, my other passion is railroading, and I love watching steam locomotives. That's not something that's economical in today's age, but it's impressive to watch. To think about the fact that people sat down and figured out how to light a piece of coal on fire, to heat a bucket of water, to turn it into steam, and then take that steam and use it to do work. And so steam locomotives are a fascinating thing. You look at people that are passionate about old sailing vessels, old cars. Jackson, do you know how to drive a stick shift?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't drive one anymore, but I do know.
It's amazing, because you can't find a lot of people your age that even know how to drive a stick shift.
No, I learned
a millennial device.
Yeah.
I actually learned how to drive. This is funny. I learned how to drive stick shift on an original World War II Jeep that was actually used in the war.
Oh, that's really cool.
My grandpa, yeah, he's got one that he uses on his farmland, and so I learned driving around, the fields in this old World War II Jeep. It's a miracle that it still runs.
I got one almost like that. I learned on a 73 VW Bug.
Nice.
That's impressive. I've ridden in a 73 VW Bug, but I wasn't old enough at the time to ever drive it.
You learn how to use 2 feet to activate 3 pedals at the same time.
That's what I've heard.
It was fun. I love that thing. I can't believe I survived my teenage years.
So, John, what's your favorite retro computer?
Honestly, it's the one that I grew up with, the Texas Instruments TI 99-4A.
Nice.
Got one. It's been a minute since I pulled it out and played with it, but yeah, I spent many a night trying to figure out how to code on that thing. I had books. I'd type it in. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to modify the code to make it do what I wanted, beyond just adding an extra line into a basics set. Yeah, if you remember BASIC, you had to do 10 function, 20 function, 30 function. Yeah, that was my beginning. A lot of the skills I learned there, I brought into DOS, and it was really a one-to-one connection there. But yeah, my heart's always into the Texas Instruments. Did you know they had a speech module for that thing?
Yeah, I do. I did know that. My next door neighbor, they had Texas Instruments, and my friend that lived next door, his older brother showed up one day and said, "Yeah, it speaks. It's a speech module." Like, wow, I didn't know that. That was like really cool.
If anybody hears of one, let me know. I'm very interested in acquiring one.
That's cool. But anyway, so best wishes to Perry Fractic. That's great news. It's a great endeavor. I'm sure he's also sweating like crazy because he's got to figure out how to finish the deal. It's not quite done there yet. The report is that he's looking for angel investors of 25,000 or more to help, finish the deal. But at some point, there may be a possibility for just the everyday user to maybe invest in it a little bit. So that'll be interesting to see how it all shapes out and what kind of new things that they come out with. The other thing too about this is that in addition to a lot of the old people coming on board to help him out with this, he's also got some of the newer people. So we talked about the newer devices. Jackson, one of the newer devices that's out there is there's a guy that makes his name's Gideon, and he makes the 1541 Ultimate, or Ultimate 1541 is what he's branded it as. And it started out, he was making a cartridge to emulate the disk drive for a Commodore 64. And then it turned into, I'm also going to put in a virtual printer on it. And then it's going to be, you can plug in a USB flash drive instead of just SD cards. And then it kind of became a whole bunch of other things for the cartridge. And then he evolved it into, he built basically a new motherboard that runs FPGA, I think, circuitry, but emulates the Commodore hardware and everything. And because it's newer technology, he's built it with HDMI out and other bells and whistles that help it out that way. But it runs the stock Commodore 64 ROM set to be able to run the computer. And you can put also, the sound chip, you can put actual Commodore sound chips in it. So instead of running the emulated sound chip, you can run an actual SID sound chip in it. Things like that. It's just a bunch of different things like that. Anyway, he's on board with it too. So I think he's looking to market his stuff as officially Commodore branded. And there's some other developers of the newer stuff that are on board too. It's really quite a thing to see. It's going to be really interesting to see what they come out with in the next year or so.
So
Very
exciting.
cool.
There was a train derailment. I don't remember the name of the town. And it wasn't catastrophic. It was like 5 or 6 locomotives piled up, but one of them got pushed far enough off the line. It ended up in somebody's property. So it wasn't next to their house, but it was on property that they owned. So basically the train company for 45 days left this locomotive in their yard.
Wow.
Was it CSX?
Did they just forget about it?
No, they were in communication, but Mike, I know you've been in the railroad. How do you pick up a locomotive?
Very carefully.
I mean, it takes more than
big and heavy cranes.
Based on the rails, or is it?
Either or. It can be, your typical construction road-driven crane, or there are cranes that are on the rails that can kind of do the job. I mean, it's an exercise of physics. It depends on where it is, how it's situated, how far away they have to move it from where they can actually park a crane and everything, because it's all the physics of, they can only boom over so far for a certain amount of weight before it becomes something that shows up on YouTube fail blog, and that's never
We
good.
need a second crane.
Right.
No, we have two problems.
When you send a tow truck to tow the tow truck that came to tow the original truck, and yeah. But yeah, locomotives are not.
You know that tow truck you sent to save us? It happened again.
Yeah. Locomotives are not lightweight. They're heavy, which actually is kind of deliberate. I mean, the way that a locomotive is able to pull as much as it can is a large part because of the amount of weight that it has sitting on the axles and everything. And then you consider the fact it's a diesel motor what we call the prime mover. It's an electric generator. So think about all the electrical wire in the windings of that generator to make electricity that then go to the traction motors, which is more windings of more wire. And so it's a lot of dense material all packed into a relatively small space that makes it very, very heavy. So yeah, it's not. There was a derailment here in Cheyenne some years ago. It was a runaway train that lost control of the brakes at the top of the hill between here and Laramie. And they knew it was running away, and unfortunately, it was a tragic accident. The locomotive crew was not able to jump off the train before it got going too fast, and so
That's unfortunate.
I don't remember if they actually did try to jump off at the last minute and died in the process of doing that, or if they just rode the thing all the way to the end. But they did lose their lives. It was very unfortunate. It crashed. What stopped it though was that it crashed into another train. The train was stopped. They told the crew of that train that was stopped that, hey, this is coming your way, get away from it. And the wreckage sat there for a little bit. They cleaned up most of the freight cars, but there was one locomotive that was one of the locomotives involved in the actual collision that sat there for quite a while, because it's, first of all, it's just a complete wreck. There's no way you're going to rebuild it. But it's not like you can just pick it up and throw it on a semi truck and haul it out. I mean, it's got to be dismantled a little bit and made to fit, made to be carried out piece by piece. However, it's not an easy thing to move a locomotive. Most times when locomotives are moved, they try to move them over the rails if they can. But if it can't, it has to go over the road. Then that's a whole bunch of special permitting and everything, just because of the size and the weight of that load. So what's going to happen is the owner now an owner of a new 600 volt electric generator.
So as they said to the news crew that was interviewing him, is it CTX or CSX?
CSX, yeah.
So they had been working with representatives there to get the logistics figured out, because they had to shut down roads and bring in cranes and stuff. But they were cooperative. Everybody was friendly. There was no adversarial. The wife actually went out and decorated the locomotive with flowers and other things just because. I mean,
there wasn't like a story of Florida man on top of the locomotive with an AK,
Nope.
It's mine now.
I love this.
Actually,
Florida,
make a good
man.
photo op. Get somebody out there with a gun, put their
You
leg
know,
up on top of it. I took out this train.
What's hilarious about that, Jackson, is that back in the day, back in the olden days, of steam railroading, when railroads were the transportation of how you got across the country, and you'd have these derailments and everything. There's these old pictures of these derailments, and there's men standing on top of the locomotive, and people posing with this derailment, like, look what happened. And like, isn't this a fantastic mess? And people standing on top of it, like, look what we conquered,
Oh, that's funny.
It's just ridiculous.
Okay, after the photo, everybody get out, lift, put it back on the
Yeah,
truck.
right.
Well, Mike, I know you said you spent some time at the Smithsonian putting in. You're kind of managing the placement of one of those, right?
I didn't directly manage everything. I was out there for a job walk to bid on the installation. The company I worked for already had the contract to do the restoration of a passenger rail car. And the second part of it was that once it was done, it had to be installed into this brand new museum. And so I was out in Washington, D.C. to do the job walk of it. And when the contractor and the project manager, they took me to the site to visit the site. At the time, all they were doing at that point was digging the hole to put the foundation. So there was still this whole building that had to be built. and they had to put the rail car in the foundation before the rest of the building could be built around it. It was one. Basically it's a permanent display. It's never coming out because of that.
Well, not in one piece.
Well, yeah, at least not in one piece. And even if you do take it apart, I mean, that's going to be quite an effort to if they ever had to take it apart. It's going to be a lot of little pieces. It's going to be very time consuming to
You're
do
gonna
that.
need 3 cranes.
I don't know. I don't know how that would ever happen. But there was a big challenge because as they were digging the foundation, they were showing me that they had to actively pump out the groundwater out of this hole because the water table for Washington, D.C. is only 20 feet below the surface of the ground. And this hole was much deeper than 20 feet. So like, yeah, we have to pump this water out. And in that process of pumping the water out, then they have to reintroduce that water back into the water table that's not inside the hole. And then at the same time, build up a kind of a retaining wall system to keep that water out of the hole, but in the ground where the water table is. They said that
Use it to water my grass.
if they didn't put the water back into the water table would drop. And we're staring over there at the Washington Monument, like that over there would end up sinking if we don't take care of the water table the right way and manage it, and everything. We would have some serious problems. And so there's a lot of factors that went into this. And ultimately, the crane company that came and did it had to get, I think, their 2 largest cranes that they had and be able to set them up. And it was a 2 crane lift, one on each end of the passenger car. Now, relatively speaking, this passenger car is not a very big or heavy thing, but the fact that they had to extend the booms way out in order to put it down into the hole where it needed to go and not cause anything to happen that would show up, on a fail video. It was quite a very technical exercise to do. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. I mean, where this train wreck happened, it's not just, and there have been other things where a train wreck has caused other problems where, like, it's not just the wreck itself, but what infrastructure did it damage or destroy? Did it rupture a gas line, for example? Is the electrical lines anywhere near there? Is that causing a problem of how we get to it? There's all kinds of things.
Still usable, I mean, those are pretty.
And the track, and really the track gets repaired within 24 hours because if they can't move freight over that line, they're losing money, and we're talking millions of dollars a minute, if not an hour. So the track's gonna get repaired pretty quickly. But in working for the cleaning up these sites, there's lots to think about. There's gas lines, there's utility lines, there's all kinds of things that you don't want to accidentally damage in the process of doing this cleanup. If it hasn't been damaged already just from the derailment.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot that you've shared with us offline. Glad we got a chance to talk about it on this. It's kind of a rare moment for tech to talk, where tech meets old school steam technology and how to handle those kinds of moments.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. So then that gets us into our other topic about old equipment.
Yeah.
Old routers, old networking equipment especially, but old computers, old legacy hardware, I guess you could call it. And there's been some recent news that I think didn't start out a couple weeks ago that I want to say that the FBI was even saying, like, you need to get rid of your old routers, stop using your old routers because they're vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think it might have even been a month or 2 ago where this first started happening, where it was a specific, I want to say, was it TP-Link? Where
Could've been.
there was a
TP-Link is older
notice.
than that.
Yeah. But I mean, basically, yeah, there was a whole like sanction. It was like, yeah, don't use this company more because they're compromised or whatever. But then, also older equipment, sometimes companies just stop supporting stuff, and sometimes the notice is kind of invisible. You don't really see it, so you wouldn't know.
Right.
It's
unless you're on
not
top of
like
it.
it's not like these companies can reach out to every one of their customers and say, "Hey, we know you bought one of these things that we manufactured, 6 million of. So you might want to get rid of it and replace it with something else." Because yeah, everybody's going to have, 80 to 90, sometimes $200 to replace one of these devices that is no longer supported or no longer viable for support.
Well, and
Well, and
really in
think
the
of that in
traditional,
math. The supply chain has to have enough of those to cover everybody that's getting it replaced.
right. And really, how many people, when they buy something off the shelf at their local Best Buy, Walmart, home improvement store, whatever it is, you take it home and who fills out the registration card or who goes online to register their product? I mean, I'm sure there's some people do, but then you look at how long ago was that the email that you're using now? Did you use an email address that you're currently using? And people's email addresses change, and you're not going to get communications from that company. And the other thing was I was thinking about on this is that it's not just that, but I remember for some time when we were following CISA and like the latest threats coming out and everything, sometimes there are hardware flaws that become a security vulnerability that there's no way you can patch it with a software or firmware update. It's a physical problem with the hardware that you're just going to have to replace the device or put other measures around it to keep that device secure. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's my like internal dilemma is there's a couple of things that these companies can do. Well, when it becomes like a huge security concern, like even if it's a hardware thing like that, they can push out an update that essentially bricks it, and then it's like, okay, well, you can't use it for your safety. We're going to shut it off. And that's, well, I don't want that to happen. I don't
Is
want my
that
stuff
right
randomly
though?
just shutting off. Well, that's the thing. It's like for someone who is not educated and doesn't bother to educate themselves, which I'm not saying that's I mean, not everyone is involved in the tech world. It takes a lot of energy to be paying attention to all of this, and not everyone can or will do that ever. So you get into, well, how are these companies doing notices? And like you said, like, well, you might not even be using the email. You probably maybe never even registered the product on the site, so you'll never know when it hits end of life. So there's like all of these factors that go into it. So unless you care a lot about it, and the average person is not going to. I don't think there's a way you could convince them. So it's a tough thing. So the company can either try and save the user by bricking it and forcing them to get a new one, but I don't think that's going to go over well. It won't go over well with me.
D-Link went through that just a little bit ago.
TP-Link?
Some of their old network attached storage. They said these are end of life and we are not providing patches.
Mm-hmm.
And tens of thousands of people had them still, and they were connected to the cloud, and they were vulnerable. And D-Link said, buy a new one.
Yeah. And it's just so hard because not everyone's going to even see that notice.
Yeah.
So it's either they have, because this is what happened. WD, Western Digital, did this with some of their old servers. They had the old, like, I think they still sell them, but they're obviously newer. But it's like the My Book and like the My Cloud and whatever. It was a network attached storage that you could put in your home, and then you could also access it through the web. But the problem was the software for these was so out of date. They said, okay, it's not working, or we're not supporting it anymore. And then they went so far as to they actually did take it off the internet. So they pushed an update that disabled its connectivity to outside internet. So it became a pure NAS. And so that is an option of where a company did that. And in that case, it didn't hurt as bad, right? Because they didn't completely brick it. It wasn't like, yeah, you don't get to use it anymore. It was just like, well, this feature of being able to access it over the web, you're not going to get anymore. We're not going to put you at risk. And so I guess that was a situation where I did appreciate that. And I feel like in most instances, I don't want a company to just randomly push an update that says, hey, this doesn't work anymore. Good luck. Go buy a new one. So I don't know. That's the thing. And so I think that's where it becomes just, I don't even know.
And this is the discussion I wanted to have, guys, is we're at a point where old tech is really turning into a new problem. Because you buy a thing at a thrift store, you buy it from a friend, you buy it from eBay, you bring it home, you play with it, you plug it in. It's vulnerable out of the box, can't download a security fix, but you bought it to do a thing. Let's say it's network attached storage. Let's say it's a media server. Let's say it's any of those things. What do we do?
I'll tell you what I'll do.
Here's what frustrates me is I come from the school of, my parents taught me that if I buy something, I should take care of it so that it lasts me a long time and I get my money's worth out of it. And, I'm not, the idea of this disposable consumerism, it's like, well, I bought it. Now it's not the latest thing. I got to buy a new one now. Oh, now there's something better out. I got to buy that one. Or you buy it and you just don't take care of it, and anybody who has kids understands this frustration, is that they get a thing and within 2 weeks it's broken and worthless and this and that. So I was taught to take care of stuff, and if I took care of the stuff that I have, that it would last me a long time. But now these companies are telling me, like, you don't want it to last a long time, because it becomes vulnerable and it's insecure and it's not good to have on the internet for a long time. And so it is frustrating. What do we do about it? I don't know. Like, I'm kind of thinking, like I was mentioning earlier, like maybe it requires like get other things to put around it or in front of it in the network topology that helps it be secure. I don't know.
Well, just one of the things I've done is I've removed the default gateway.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool trick. I don't know if you know that one, Jackson. If you get rid of the default gateway, it cannot talk to the internet.
Like in what way? Give me more info. I'm a little lost.
So, default gateway on your computer in networking, default gateway is that next hop to another IP range.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ping 10.0.0.1 and your computer's on 10.0.0.2, it'll get there. If you're pinging 20.0.0.1, the router will see, or the computer says, hey, that's not near me. I need a router. So it goes to 10.0.0.1 if that's your router. And the router then takes care of getting you out to 20.0.0.1.
Right.
But your computer doesn't know where 20 is. It only knows that it's on the 10 network. So the default gateway's the access to the rest of the world. So if you get rid of the default gateway, or if your device requires it, point it to something that's not it. Point it to like
so it just
.7 or something.
Gets lost.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It goes, there's nobody there, and it's effectively as if you unplug the router.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool little trick, because I know you tinker.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, this is less of a problem. Like with the whole WD thing, well, my solution is all right, whatever, I'll just wipe it, put Linux on it, or a different Linux distro on it. Whatever, that's fine. I can fix it. But for the average user, that's where it's a worry. It's like, well, that sucks. Because someone else is not going to know what to do, how to do it, nor are they going to probably feel confident doing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I'm all for like tutorials on YouTube, people who are putting knowledge out there. And there will never be enough. But I also feel like, as me who is, semi-knowledgeable, when I go looking for something and then I also can't, like, there's nothing out there, it takes some time, but I can figure it out. If it's someone else, like, I mean, they're just not going to be able to do it. And so, I've contemplated so many times of putting up just a blog of just like random things that Jackson figured out how to do with like all the stuff that's just missing on the internet of, how do I do this? Sometimes you can get halfway there, but then the rest of the way you're kind of left to your own devices, and unless you're experienced and confident in that area, you're just not going to get there. So
maybe
the average Joe is just going to be stuck with.
Maybe that could be legislation that would make sense. Is not force. I hate the idea of legislation forcing manufacturers to do things, especially for dying or obsolete products. But maybe it'd be a best practice or industry standard that when you end of life something, you put that plan together so that your hardware can survive your abandoning the hardware.
So,
well,
or your Western Digital Drive, where they disabled the cloud access but still let it run on the local network. That seems like a good compromise.
Yeah, it was a good compromise. It was like, okay, I can still use it. I just can't go on vacation, and access my photos or whatever. But now you have to look at it from a manufacturer's perspective. The whole reason these things go end of life, and we've talked about this before, a lot of things that do go end of life, or, say you have a computer that can't use Windows 11. I was like, okay, well, it's still useful. Like, you can still install all sorts of different things on it, and it can be extremely a powerful thing. The same goes for all these old routers. The reason they end of life is because it's no longer profitable for the company to support it. You have to dedicate time and resources and people to write software for it. And it's like, okay, well, why would we keep writing software for a product that is no longer being sold? And it was last time it was sold was 10 years ago. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense for them. And so I would like that, if a manufacturer were to say, okay, we're end of lifing it, here's what you can do to keep it alive. But then also from a manufacturer's perspective, I'd be like, well, why would we do that? We just want to sell them the new one.
Yeah, especially when their product line keeps expanding, because then it's just more and more and more devices that you have to keep supporting, and the hardware isn't getting, like, the hardware is getting better or faster that they have to, change their code anyway, just based on the hardware needs. So now it's like, okay, so now I got to write for this chip architecture, and we've shifted over to this architecture now. So now we got to support that too. And I can see the nightmare that would be, and it does not make, from the bookkeeper standpoint, doesn't make financial sense to keep doing that.
I saw a video recently, a couple days ago. A guy playing with old tech. He picked up old school, the first round of Cisco voice over IP phones. Like, it wasn't PoE, it was power injected Ethernet. He had to buy the right switch, he had to get the right gateway, he had to get the phone appliance. I mean, he had the whole thing. It's an hour-long video. Had 116,000 views on it. I mean, there's people out there trying to resurrect this old tech because it still works. That's Mike. I think you hit it on the head with, we have a throwaway technology or a throwaway society of like, it's not working, throw it away. Well, if you could spend half an hour to bang on it or upgrade firmware or change a setting, Well, why throw it away when it still works?
Well, and to be fair, some of it's so old that now it's fascinating, and it from a history perspective, it's interesting to see how did they do it back in the day. You know, I know there's a channel out there that of old phone exchange systems and how they worked, retro computer museums and old, vacuum tube computers, and these kinds of things fascinate people because it's just so interesting to see how far we've come with technology in a relatively short amount of time. Even to look at stuff from 25 years ago is radically different than what we use today.
And it's, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that most of it is still compatible with what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the vulnerabilities kick in more than
anything.
anything.
And that's funny because we had the customer that came in that needed some help with some software that was on a CD-ROM, not a DVD-ROM, a CD-ROM. And we're like, wait, we got to find an optical disk drive to put this in, because none of our new computers today. It used to be that everything came with a CD-ROM drive, and then a DVD-ROM drive, and then a DVD rewritable drive, and now there's just no optical disk drive at all, and everything is either downloaded straight to the computer or it's plugged in on USB flash media or something like that, and that's how we install it. And so it's like, we have to we'll see if we have an optical disk reader that we can use to get the information off of this disk that you have.
My favorite thing is I built the computer that's sitting right here next to me, and it's pretty powerful. I mean, pretty mid to high range powerful. And so it's funny, sometimes people come over and be like, "Oh, that's a cool computer," and then they're like, "Why is it so old?" But they say that because I have a DVD drive that I salvaged from some other computer and stuck it in there specifically for that. Sometimes you get software and they ship it in a DVD, and you're like, "Well,
you know what you should really do to make it look really old? Put a 5 1/4 inch disk drive in it."
I think I still have one.
Like
yeah.
I don't know how you're going to do that because you're going to need a disk controller, and I don't know if they make ones that fit PCI slots. Maybe they do. I don't know. I've never looked for such a thing. So
I don't know. I think I could, if I took out both of these, I think it'd fit.
I've got a new mission now, Mike. Thanks. I wanted to actually try that. Does Windows 11 support 3.5 or 5 1/4?
Well, it depends on how it communicates.
I'll even be amazed if they support 3.5.
I'll be surprised if Windows 11 supports, just like a normal computer in a few months.
That's true.
Touché.
Well, what did the floppies use to communicate? Is it a just a serial communication?
Because assuming floppy connectors were their own proprietary connectors specific to floppy communications. So you're getting back into the original x86 architecture. Floppies were a specific controller. Hard drives had their own controller. You've heard of IDE drives?
Yep.
That was integrated drive electronics. Before IDE, it was a separate controller card going to the drive itself, and you had to marry the two together in software. You had to go to the firmware level and map the drive in the controller.
Yikes.
And you can't move it. You can't plug it into somebody else's computer. You have to bring both the controller and the drive.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Wasn't easy. But we're talking back to the MFM, RLL, SD, ESDI. The SCSI was actually intelligent because it actually had that separation built into hardware. But SCSI was what, like 7 times more expensive, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
It's like ridiculous. But floppies, yeah, they had their own ribbon cable. They had their own controller. It was its own thing.
I think I
and
still have
as
some
you're
floppy ribbon cables in my old storage.
well, as you're telling me about that, and I was wanting to mention this as we were talking about, recycling or reusing the old tech. Like, as you're saying this, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, that sounds like such a pain to have to do. And I think that's also another factor for people, like even people who are willing to do it, like us, that have the knowledge and the skills. Sometimes it's just a time thing. It's like, do I want to spend, several hours setting that thing up, or is that core I could go spend $100 and get a new one?
Well, and that goes to the next problem, and this is why we're talking about it. It's hitting the news again. The government has just reissued a warning to everybody to throw away your zombie tech. It's there, it's still alive, but it's mostly dead because it's not supported. It's still doing what you set it up to do. So if you helped a neighbor or you helped an old relative out, why would you spend 2 hours out of your day to go over there and double check and make sure it's working? Especially if you helped out like 50 or 60 people.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a bunch of vulnerable pieces of equipment floating around the world right now that was set up. It ain't broke, so nobody's going to fix it. But it's vulnerable to the hackers, and the home users don't realize that they're vulnerable, or the corporate users.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, how what's the risk on it? How much is that risk going to cost you? Is it worth the couple $100 to go buy new equipment, or just leave it? I think most people say leave it.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is working now. Why do I need to buy another one?
Yeah. I don't have money.
Yeah, my
to
bank
spend on
vault is secured by a computer. It runs DOS 3.1. There's no harm in that, right? Come on.
I mean, you had to go DOS 3.3. 3.1 was weak.
Yeah.
3.3 is when it started getting better. DOS 5. That was cool.
622.
And then Microsoft walked away.
Right.
Got a copy Xerox.
Although the Windows 95 disk, if you do a version on the DOS, 7.
Huh. What's that, Artie?
Ironically, they just went and copied Xerox.
Microsoft would never rip off stuff like that.
I mean, what's the joke where Steve Jobs accused Gates of stealing the GUI system, and he's like, "Look, we were both neighbors with Xerox, and we just both broke in and stole the ideas from them."
Yeah.
Well, Microsoft back in the day had a very strong track record of ripping off everybody else's work.
We hope you enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos. Have a wonderful day.